All right, guys. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, this video is basically going to be talking about like the different things that happened before, our country was made, and the different, documents that took away power from the kings and queens, and how basically all this little stuff built up into what we know as our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence and things like that. So we drew inspiration from these early documents, and that's what we're going to be looking at. And as we go on, as we move through, we're going to get into more in depth of our own Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. And if I remember right, that's what we're going to be ending with our Declaration of Independence. Like, what does it actually mean? What's in it, and things like that. Okay. So, your objectives today, we're going to analyze how the Magna Carta changed the world, how one paper, one document really changed the world. We're going to examine the importance of the Petition of Rights, and we're going to create an argument on whether a person in power would willingly give up their power, not be forced to, not be kicked out or killed, things like that. No, would a person in power give up power? What do you think? We'll be getting to that question at the end. Oops. So, sorry about that. So, this is your warm up picture. Now, the question is asking you, what do you think this artist is trying to say is the most important thing in this picture? All right, so if you notice around, there's several things: books, money, things like that. Sacks of, could be money, could be other stuff. Um, what do you think this artist is trying to say? Oh no, these are the most important things in this picture. So what are they, and why do you think they're trying to say those things are? Okay, and I know some of you guys have no idea what those things are, and that's fine. But that should also give you an idea of its importance. Okay, so think about it. Write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So the Magna Carta. This is also known as the Great Charter. This is that document you see right there. That's the Magna Carta. It was signed by King John in 1215. Now the thing is, he, like a lot of his descendants before him, thought, "Hey, I'm the king. I'm Mr. Chingon. Everyone has to listen to me what I say." But in reality, the armies were that of the noblemen, you know, and the noble people realized, what, this king thinks he's top dog, top everything, and that we have to listen to everything he says. But we really have the power. The king, if we decide to turn our backs, you know, they're not going to have much. So yeah, so that's what they did to the king. They basically let him know, we're not going to do what you say. And he was kind of realizing, like, maybe they're kind of right. At first he was like, no, no, I'm the king. I'm this and that. God chose me and my ancestors, and no, and then it just came to be like, what? Dang, they're right. So the Magna Carta gave up some power from the king to the people. But the thing is, it was originally just meant for the nobles. It wasn't meant for the average person. But as time went on, it changed to mean all people. And what did this document say? It said that you were protected from unjust punishment, meaning the king couldn't just arrest you just because, they thought you looked ugly. No, none of that stuff. You can't lose your life, your freedom, or your property unless it's according to the law. They just can't take those things, whether it be your life, your freedom, or your property. There has to be a reason, and there has to be a law that says, if you do this, you will lose your home. If you do this, you will lose your freedom. You'll be incarcerated for life. If you do this, we will kill you. It has to stay in law already before, they take whatever it is that they're going to take. Okay. Now in 1625, so about 400 years later, Charles I he basically is like, you know what? All those other kings back then, they were scared of the people, the noblemen and stuff like that. I'm not. I'm the king. So he basically took his power and dissolved the parliament, which is the Congress. There were the people that uh, the the regular Joes nominate or elect to be their representatives. So he gets rid of parliament and he places troops in people's homes and basically made sure that those soldiers kept an eye out for what's happening in town, things like that, and listening to people's conversation, basically being like a secret police. But again, they're soldiers in people's houses, so they're not really secret. And also, in some towns, he declared martial law. Now, some of you guys may know what that means, some of you guys may not. Those of you guys who don't, it's basically when the military takes control of a town, puts it into like kind of like a quarantine, nobody in or out. Uh, you have a curfew, things like that. There's basically no police. The military is the police, things like that. Now, King Charles the First thinking, okay, well, I can do whatever I want. But as time goes on, the people start retaliating and coming back at him, things like that. So it got to the point where he was about to lose power in his life. So in 1628, he put Parliament back, put them back together, and then they basically said, no, 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 that's not all we want from you. If you don't also sign the Petition of Rights, we're going to come back at you. And he's like, gosh, all right, fine. What is this Petition of Rights? And it's that document you see right there on your screen. Basically, the king couldn't collect taxes without Parliament's consent. So before, the king could easily say, however many children you have, you're going to pay this much taxes. You know, if you bought bread, you're going to pay so much taxes. So he could have done taxes on anything. But now the parliament, their Congress, has to say yes to it. Because if they don't approve it, the king can't put a tax on it. They can't imprison people without just cause. So again, the king can't just throw somebody in jail just because. There has to be a reason for it. You know, there has to be a reason for the arrest and being thrown into jail. There has to be court and things like that. No housing of troops without the permission of the owner. So no more soldiers in the house. People didn't like that. That's actually going to play a role later on in our Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. And the last one, well, there's more, but this is another of the big ones. They can't declare martial law unless the country is at war. So it's like you can't have soldiers surrounding a city unless it's there to protect us from an invading um, foreign army or something like that. So, yeah, no more martial law. All right, guys. So the next thing that happened was in 1688. King James II was removed from the throne by Parliament. They were just like, hey, get out of here. And they replaced him with King William II and Mary II. They put them in charge. Now, this transfer of power became known as the Glorious Revolution because this was known also as the Bloodless Revolution because of the transfer of power. There was no fighting. There was no one side saying no, 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 keep him in, and the other side no, no, take him out, and you know, no, there was none of that stuff. It was just a simple transfer of power without anything bad happening, no bad blood or fighting or anything like that. Um, so that's why it's known as the Glorious Revolution. Now the thing is, the new king and queen, which you see them right there in that picture, they gave power to the people and parliament. They basically made sure that parliament was there permanently, cannot be taken away. It's the voice of the people. So no more future kings, or queens could say, no, 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 we're going to dismantle, the parliament, like Charles the First did. No, 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 none of that. It's now permanent. It's there for the people. That is the right of the people to elect and to have people to represent them, be their voice in the government. Now, one of the more interesting things that came out around this time too was the English Bill of Rights, which was adopted by Parliament. And it basically set clear limits on what the ruler could and couldn't do. Now, these are just some of them. All right, these aren't all of it, but some of the more important ones. Number one says, like, they ruled with the consent of the people. So again, the people have the power, not the king or queen, you know, and parliament is supposed to be the voice of the people. So as soon as they don't do that, the people can uprise, and topple it. Because again, the power of this country and any country, the people give it power. Okay. Now, Parliament is needed to suspend laws, levy taxes, and maintain an army. So again, the king, queen can't do that. They can't say, no, 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 get rid of this law. Oh, no, no, we need to collect some taxes, or, we need to do this with the army. We need to build another branch or stuff like that. No, Parliament does that, not the king or queen. This one was the most interesting one. I thought was amazing. The king and queen can't interfere with elections and debates. So while things are going on in parliament and they're, out there talking to the people, stuff like that, with the elections coming up, um, for prime minister or things like that, the king and queen can't go out saying everyone needs to vote for this guy, because he's better than this guy. This guy sucks. No, they can't do that. They can't try to sway people. It's again the voice of the people. The people choose who they want in charge. Um, Also, the people have the right to petition the government and the right to a fair and speedy trial. So, if the people don't like something going on in the government, they have the right to say that without getting in trouble. Saying, I don't like what this prime minister is doing, this representative, this king or queen. They can say whatever they want without fear of retaliation towards them. Okay. Beforehand, again, that's where king and queens would just arrest them. You say something bad about us, about the noblemen's, you're in jail. Now, the other part is the right to a fair and speedy trial, because back in the day, they used to arrest people and just keep them there. And they would tell people, oh, yeah, the trial's coming up soon. Don't worry. And sometimes they would never have it. So that person basically spent their whole lives in jail, So that's what they're saying. No, no. Your trial is going to be fair. It's going to be judged before the law, you know, and it's not going to take forever for you to have a court date. It'll be within a reasonable time, so it won't be 5 years, things like that. And the last one that I have on here is people would be not be subject to any cruel and unusual punishment. So for those of you guys who, if you remember if you had me for world history, we talked about the stuff that happened in the uh, Inquisition times, the different type of torture they would do to people, you know, hang them up in the air, tie their feet and arms together, and just let the body weight, pop out their sockets from their arms, tie them to horses, put them on a wheel and put some hot coals on the bottom as they turn them. That's that's cruel and unusual punishment. So this document says no, none of that. So now we come to America's time. Yay! Now America, the colonies are establishing, and stuff like that. So when the Pilgrims came, um, they came on the Mayflower, to Plymouth Rock and all that stuff. There was actually a document that they wrote, and this document was signed by the 41 men representing the families of the Pilgrims. And basically, they created a bunch of rules to govern themselves. Okay, to make sure like, hey, everyone's equal, and you do this is the punishment, and these are the rules we're going to abide by as we live here and start a new life. Okay. They chose their own leaders, made their own laws that would benefit them, of course. They're not going to make laws that benefited other people. Of course, they made laws to benefit them in their little group. Okay. The next one I thought was pretty interesting. This is the Albany Plan of the Union. It was written by Benjamin Franklin. And I'll be making a TikTok video a little bit about Ben Franklin, the stuff he did, and what made him so famous and stuff like that. And it he got turned down, because it gave too much power to an assembly made up of representatives from all 13 colonies. And some people felt, yeah, no, you can't give the government too much power. And when we get into the Articles of Confederation and some of that, you'll see what happens with that. Okay. Richard Henry Lee proposed to the Second Continental Congress that the United Colonies should be free and independent. And so basically, the Second Continental Congress agreed with him and says, you know what, we should. And they get started on it right away. Now, what did they get started on is a document. And on July 4th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson finished his final draft of the Declaration of Independence. And there it is right there. There's a picture of it. It is signed and approved on July 4th, 1776. Okay. Now, the Declaration of Independence, it has basically three parts into it. The first part states its purpose and it talks about human rights. The rights we're born with as people and things like that. The second part is lists specific complaints against King George III, describes how he violated their political, civil, and economic freedoms. Now, if you remember from last year, from the U.S. history class, the U.S., the colonies, tried to send him a letter. It's called the Olive Branch Petition. And they tried to tell him, look, it will remain loyal to you, but, you know, it's your policies. They suck. It's not you personally, it's your policies. And he didn't even read the letter. And he just basically said, no, the colonies are enemies to Britain. So they came up with this thing, you know what? Fine. We're going to list everything that you've done wrong to us. And that's the second part of the Declaration of Independence. The third part states the colonists' determination to separate from Britain, and also how they tried the 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 Olive Branch Petition, how they tried to get like Ben Franklin to talk to Parliament and stuff like that. Which I'll be again talking about in the TikTok video. But now that everything, all the discussions, all this talk about trying to find a peaceful solution, it's not happening. The king won't budge. So they're saying now we have no choice but to declare our freedom. And that's what the Declaration of Independence basically is in a nutshell. Now, here's my question to you. Do you think any president, king, queen, or leader today, around the world today, would give up the power that they have? Would say, you know what? Okay, I have too much power. I'm going to give some of it back to Congress, Parliament, the people, whomever. Or do you think they're like going to be like, no, 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 no. I don't have enough power. In fact, I need more. What do you think? Do you think any leader today around the world would ever give up their power? And why do you think this? Okay. So again, if you notice, there's no writing prompt on the bottom. I want to see how you guys do. Write your starting your own sentence and how well you do that. Okay. So I know you guys can do it. All right. So with that being said, you guys, you take care. You be safe. I'll see you guys later. Okay.